Well, one of our favorite places to come for the fall and for Christmas time is to come to Timber Press, and I'm with Tom. And Tom, you're Senior Acquisitions Editor.
That's right, Judy.
So you know all about these books, and you have a great collection to show for us.
Well, thanks. We're excited about them. First off is Planting the Natural Garden by Pete Outolf and Henk Gerritsen. This is the book that initiated the new perennial movement about 20 years ago. This is a brand new edition, completely revised and expanded. This really shows you if you love that look, that billowy, colorful
Drifts.
look of the new perennial movement, this is the book that tells you how to do that. It tells you which plants work best in that kind of planting scheme, which plants go together. So if you're a Pete Outolf fan, and there are more and more of them these days, this is the book that will get you started doing that.
You know, I remember that from a long time ago, but it's so nice to have new pictures and new ideas.
Yes, with all of Pete's projects that he's done since then.
Oh,
included.
so many around the world.
Yeah.
And then really a famous author here.
Yes, Marta McDowell, who has done wonderful books for us on Beatrix Potter and Laura Ingalls Wilder, has now turned her attention to Emily Dickinson and her garden. And many people who love Emily Dickinson's poems don't really realize that she was an avid gardener. She loved plants and gardening and had a garden at her house in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is still open to the public, by the way. You can visit her house and see her gardens. And this has extracts from her letters and her poems, and just really delves into her love for plants and gardening, and it's really delightful.
That is going to be nice. And you know, on those cold nights and cold afternoons, it'd be nice to be reading a book about lovely flowers.
Yes.
And orchids. Wow.
Yes, next up, Orchid Modern by Mark Hatchadurian, who is the collector of orchids at the New York Botanic Gardens. What Mark doesn't know about orchids isn't worth knowing. So if you love orchids, but you've been nervous about trying them or scared off, this will take away your fear and your nervousness, because he tells you exactly how to grow them indoors in ordinary indoor conditions, all the little tips. And then there are these great projects you can do using orchids to make little terrariums or wall decorations or all sorts of interesting things. And then he gives you a list of all the orchids that are easiest to grow indoors for ordinary people who don't have greenhouses and who don't want to fiddle with demanding, hard-to-find plants. So it's really got everything you want for the orchid lover.
Wow. And you know, taking that fear out, I think that's the one thing that stops people about orchids. They just think, oh, they're too fussy, I'm not going to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
Next up, Garden Miscellany by Suzanne Staubach. This is one of my favorites this season. It's such a delightful book. It's basically an A to Z about the things you see and find in a garden. But instead of being illustrated with ordinary photographs, there are these delightful illustrations that show you garden panoramas. And so each element then gets picked out and discussed. And for a reference book, it is such a pleasure to read. You can just page through it, enjoy the illustrations, read the useful and interesting information. So for a gardener, for someone who wants to find a gift for a gardener, it's the perfect choice. And just for yourself, if you're a gardener, it's such a pleasure to leaf through and enjoy.
Neat, just a little bit different take on it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Ooh, this looks interesting.
Yes, Nature into Art. This is about the wonderful garden at Wave Hill in the Bronx, one of the best public gardens in our country. And it has deserved a book for a long, long time, and finally it's gotten one. It's right on the Hudson River in the Bronx, north of Manhattan, with beautiful views of the Palisades, but it's an exquisite garden that's been developed over decades, with all sorts of different areas to it, perennial borders, conservatories, beautiful lawns and vistas, and the photographs in this book truly do it justice. So for the garden traveler, or for anyone who just wants to familiarize him or herself with one of the great gardens in our country, it's a great choice.
Wow, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Whoa, and this is a tome.
And this is for the serious gardener who is into woody plants. The Tree Book by Michael Durr and Keith Warren. Mike Durr, as many people know, is the tree and woody plant guru in this country. What he doesn't know about trees and woody plants isn't worth knowing. Keith Warren is a local person, worked for many, many years at J. Frank Schmidt, a wholesale tree nursery just outside of Portland. So this is a compendium of all the tree species anyone might encounter or want to encounter. If you need to choose a tree or you need to get information about a tree, it's going to be in this book. And not only just the species, but all the available cultivars, which are the best for different purposes. So if you're serious about woody early plants, or if you just need a really good reference book for your gardening library, that's got to be one of the best buys you can acquire.
Oh, it is a great reference. We talked to Keith earlier in the season, and we just had so much fun talking with him. And this is a little bit different, not exactly gardening, but we love nature.
Right, we're ending with a little bit of fun. Animals Reviewed. Makes a great stocking stuffer. It's a book sponsored by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it's like a little review online of various animals and birds, and given stars and various ratings. So they're humorous. They're sort of tongue-in-cheek. Some are glowing reviews. Some are saying, "Well, this is not quite as advertised or as expected," but they're all funny, and it's fun to read. And the profits from the book are all going to various conservation and outreach programs. So it's a worthy cause as well. So if you need a little stocking stuffer for the nature lover or animal lover in your family, it's a good choice.
Oh, that sounds so much fun. It'd be fun to do on Christmas Day and just read them over the table. That'd be great. Well, this is a great way to have a gift for a gardener or yourself, and to spend those days in January when there's nothing to do outside. It's just too cold and rainy. Well, you can always go to gardentime.tv. We'll click you over to the Timber Press book website, and you can get all of these books for your gifts this year. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Judy.